Thanks for the pressure. You know, the first two went, without a hitch. Now you flip the switch and I see the light on. So, now I'll fumble through everything. And there's been several comments that I'll just address now. Several comments from the other two sessions commenting on my attempt to grow a beard. I had intentions of it being like Robert Carr's, but the color's more like Shannon's, and the length is nowhere near either one of them. So you can bust my chops later. Maybe we'll have to get a COVID-19 wall of pictures for some of us that are attempting to grow beards in this, distancing thing. So anyway, thanks for joining this morning. I appreciate it. Most of all, thanks for participating with the meetings with your team leaders, and then also taking the extra effort and time to reach out to all of your apprentices to make sure everybody's safe and trying to address any issues that they may have as we all navigate through these uncharted waters. You're all aware that our classes are suspended through August. So with that, it kind of set the second tier of how do we conduct classes into motion. It's my opinion that being that distance from our apprentices for that long of a time wouldn't be a benefit to them or the program. So that's why we're having this meeting, so that we can get you guys some training that you may need, and to show you how it works on doing some web meetings, so that we can go and hold a June, July, and August web-based class. Okay. A couple of things that our goals are with these web-based classes. One is to have that interaction with the apprentices. First class will be on job site safety, COVID-19. So we want to get them with any education training that they may be exposed to and address in a class. And we think that's going to be best done, on this platform. The other part of that is that we also want to invite the business agents to come to that June class. The concern with that class is apprentices may have questions, concerns, issues that are job site contractor specific that aren't in our wheelhouse to answer. So hopefully we can get the invites out to them when you guys set up your classes. They'll attend, and then if those issues arise, either the agent can address them at that point, or can take them off to the side afterwards and address whatever those job conditions or issues that are of concern that aren't just generic safety training that we're given. A couple of key things that we've been in the process of doing with your team leaders. One is setting up the Remind app. So you guys should have been working on the Remind app, getting all your apprentices logged into that. That's going to be our best form of communication to push out information one way on a very short notice. We have not been successful doing mailings out of our office to communicate timely, accurate information. Things change too quickly. About 10% of the mail comes back to us, so they don't even get the notices. And then, it takes too long with, snail mail to get out there. So the Remind app is certainly going to be our best way forward. So thanks for taking the time to get that in motion. Having that in place now allows us to go where we're going today, to set up the free conference call, because as Jeff walks you through that process today, you're going to push that out through the Remind app to notify all your apprentices that we're going to hold a web-based class in June, and then subsequently in July and August. So we'll walk you through that process, but thanks for taking the time to get on board with those requests. The first class that is going to be taught in June is going to be that job site safety COVID-19. We're going to teach that class in this platform May 27th. Jeff, if I trip on that, let me know. May 27th and June 4th.
That is
June,
correct.
yeah.
So the first session will be May 27th at 4 p.m. Pacific time. And the second session will be June 4th at 1 p.m. Pacific time.
So those 2 dates, we're going to teach this roughly 1 hour class by a couple of our instructors that have raised their hand to do it. And it's mostly geared at the journeyman, but it's the same class you're going to teach in June. So if you want to see it taught or, watch it, observe it, participate, whatever, pick one of those dates. It's on the 669 website. There's a link there to log in, and it'll be on this same platform. Okay. All right. That covers, I think, all of my notes for opening remarks. So I'm going to turn it over to Jeff. He's going to walk us through some of this technology and walk us through how to set up your free conference app. Jeff?
All right. Thanks, guys. So, in the current condition that we're in, obviously, this video conferencing, distance learning, interactive learning, whatever you want to call it, seems to be getting more and more prevalent. Kids are doing it in school, colleges switching to it. We're seeing a lot of meetings being conducted this way on the job site, off of the job site. So it makes me kind of happy to see that everyone got logged in with relatively no problems here. So it kind of leads me to believe that it's not real hard to use, but from a participation standpoint. But what I will say is from a conducting standpoint, there is a little bit of a learning curve. It's going to take you out of your comfort zone a little bit. And I'm going to walk you through how to do a lot of these basic functions. But the one takeaway that I really want you to leave this meeting with here is that you're not going to leave this meeting, this tutorial, as a pro on this thing. You should try and practice this a couple of times before you try to conduct your first class to get a feel for it. Because unless you've used it before in the past, it's a little bit different. It's going to be something that you're going to need to get used to. So set up some practice sessions, practice with family members, practice with other instructors, try to work through whatever obstacles you might run into, whether you're conducting them out of your house with background noise or bad internet connectivity, or just learning how to advance through presentations and stuff while you're also speaking, doing things, and try to make it seamless. So there is a little bit of a learning curve involved with it. Video conferencing in general, there's a lot of different platforms. We're using right now GoToMeetings. There's Zoom, probably everyone's familiar with that. Google has one called Meetup. There's a lot of different ways to go about doing this. What we've chosen to vet out and push out to you guys is one called freeconferencecall.com. I'm going to post the link here in the chat box so that way when we're done with this meeting, you guys can all click on this link and create your account. What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the process of doing all of these portions, but don't follow along and do it right now. Again, we're recording this session. I'll send it out to all your team leaders who can push it out to you guys after the session's been completed. I'll upload it to YouTube so that you can go back through and walk through the steps in case you missed anything. If you guys try to walk through it and do it right now as we're talking about it, you will miss some steps going forward. So there's a lot of things to cover. So although we're using GoToMeetings to provide you this training, there's a reason for that. And that's because if I use freeconferencecall.com, then I won't be able to show my screen to show you the tools associated with it while using the same platform. So I'm going to use GoTo to share my screen so that you can see the platform for the tools that you guys are going to be using with freeconferencecall.com. They work very similarly. So before we dive into it, I don't know if there's anybody that's new in here who hasn't really seen what this looks like, but I want to kind of give you a sample of what it looks like when you're conducting training to your apprentices through this application. And I know that we had, like, Robert Carr, for an example, says that he's joining from his mobile device. I think one of the important things to note here is you can join these meetings from pretty much any device you have, whether it's a phone, a tablet, or a computer. What I would suggest is that, if at all possible, when you're sending your meeting notices out, that you encourage apprentices to join via their computer or at least a tablet so they have a larger screen to look at. Um, and the other thing I'm going to say, just as a housekeeping note, as we progress through this, if you look at the top right hand side of your screen, you should be able to see an icon that has a people icon, and it shows that we have 20 people in here right now. And next to that, there's like a little bubble. It's a chat icon. I want you to click on that chat icon, and that's how you're going to participate in this meeting right now, so that we don't have an issue with people trying to talk over each other. Because the downside to this video conferencing software is it works kind of like a walkie-talkie. When one person's talking, if another person chimes in, then it cuts the other person out, and you can't hear over each other. So if you have questions as we're going through this, I'm going to monitor the chat box. I want you guys to type your questions in. I'll address them and answer them as we go through. And in fact, this is actually how you guys are going to end up conducting your classes. And this is the interaction that you're going to get from your apprentices, is through the chat box as well. So it's kind of a good thing to get used to. Yep, Jeff, you're working it. You got it. Test, test. I see it. Good to go. So just real quick, so right now you should all be able to see the PowerPoint that I have up on the screen. And Robert Carr, even from your phone, maybe you can shoot us a message, or when we get to the end, I know it'll be a little bit more difficult from your phone to add into the chat box, but you can maybe give us your input of what it looked like from a mobile device. You're the first mobile device user that we've had today. But you can see, like, I'm going through this presentation, and you should be able to see it on your screen. And on your screen right now, since we're using the webcams, what should have happened is you should see my PowerPoint, and it should take up a large portion of your screen, but there's a bar that separates the PowerPoint from our webcam camera views. And if you slide that bar up, then you can make my screen larger, where you can see the presentation in a larger format. So this is going to be similar to what you guys are doing. You're going through the presentation, you're advancing it, you're talking, you're monitoring the chat box. So I just kind of wanted to give you guys just a real quick view of what that looks like on your ends for when you're going to be conducting it, and what an apprentice would see. So in order to sign up for freeconferencecall.com, what we're going to do is you're going to follow that link that I sent out in the chat box for this conversation here. And you can either, when we conclude this meeting, you can click on the link, which will open up in your web browser, and then you can leave the meeting and you can fill out your account information at that time. Or you can just take a picture of this or something, so that you can enter it in your web browser, later, whenever you decide you're ready to sit down and take a few minutes to fill out your online profile. But in order to fill out your online profile, when you click on that link at whatever time that you sign up for your profile, it's going to bring you to a screen that looks like this, where you're going to enter your email and create a password, and you're going to hit this create my free account. When you click on this create my free account, you'll have to enter a little bit more information, like your name and stuff, so it'll show up in your profile portfolio. The one thing I wanted to point out is, enter an email here that you monitor frequently, because when we get done when you're done hosting your first meeting, you're going to get an email summary of your meeting, and that's going to what you're going to use to be able to take your attendance moving forward when we get to that portion. We'll discuss that a little bit more in detail here in just a little bit. So fill out this information, click create my free account, fill out the information that's there. For the most part, they don't send out too much junk mail. They do send out an advertisement here or there saying, hey, we keep our stuff free if you want to donate, but you can just ignore those messages. But definitely enter an email that you use frequently. Once you've logged in to your profile, you've created your account, then you'll get brought to this screen right here, which is called your meeting wall space. This is kind of like your main space for hosting, inviting meetings, doing anything like that. And what you'll see is you'll see your name up here in this box. Now, what I've done is I've gone through and I've entered additional information for the JTC, added a photo, the JTC logo, but none of that is something that you have to do. It's not a requirement. It's very easy to do. If you want to do that, you just click on this edit box and go through and add the information that you want. By default, it'll have the free conference call logo right here, and it'll have some of their information listed in the box. And that's perfectly fine too. Just make sure you got your name entered in when you create your account correctly, because that's what all your attendees are going to see when you host a meeting. So the very first thing you're going to do when you create your space is you need to start a meeting. You need to create your first meeting. So you would come up here to the top of this toolbar, and you're going to click on this box that says invite. And under the invite box, now you have an option to enter some information. So schedule, this is going to be where you're going to put whatever you're going to title your meeting. So maybe in this case, we're going to call it, June instructional class, whatever it is, whatever your topic is or whatever. I'm going to call it 3 because you guys are my 3rd session, and I've already created 2 of these before, so I need to make sure that they're separate. So you name your class whatever you're going to name it. You come down here to the date, and as Charles stated before, we're going to have you guys teach your June, July, and August classes on the class dates that you already have scheduled. So you should already know what those dates are. I think most of you guys are probably on June 13th. There may be a couple out there that are a little bit different, but for the most part, June 13th. So I'm gonna choose June 13th as my date. Then you come over here to the time box, and you're gonna choose your time. I've already created one for what our normal start time is. This says 10:30. Obviously you can go down to 8 o'clock or whatever your start time normally is, but I already have a meeting scheduled for this, so this is why it's read it out for me. So I'm just going to say I'm going to start my class at noon. Whatever your class time is what you would do. Then I'm going to come over here to this duration box, and under the duration, I'm going to pick how long that class should last. Now, something to mention here, just because I chose that this class is going to last an hour and a half, doesn't mean when I'm conducting the class that when I reach my hour and a half time frame, it ends the meeting and I'm done, I'm kicked out if I go over. It's just basically giving the attendees a little bit of information about how long their class should last, what they should expect. I've attended a lot of these webinars over the last several weeks, lots and lots. They started out kind of as 45-minute to 1-hour segments, and now people are getting comfortable with using this stuff, so they're getting longer and longer. I've noticed now that I've been on some 4 and 5-hour webinar conferences. That's not our expectation for you guys. Certainly, there's some learning curve involved with getting used to it and getting familiar with using the platform. So my suggestion would be, for your first one, your June class on teaching this COVID-19 safety course, that you kind of keep it to around an hour to an hour and a half, just kind of as a goal. It's going to be a little bit different for you when you're conducting your class, because you're used to being able to stand in front of a class and talk to a class, see somebody's hand go up, create that interaction, engage in discussions. But you're not going to have that ability when you're conducting a class virtually like we're doing right now. So you're going to be talking to your computer screen, and you're going to be looking at a chat box, waiting for somebody to type something in as you're progressing through the topics you're trying to cover. So there is a little bit of a learning curve associated with it. So to try to extend this out to like 4 or 5-hour class like you would normally conduct, that's not the expectation. I would say that for your June class, an hour to hour and a half is good. For your July and August classes, maybe you're getting a little bit more of a comfort, and maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours would be your goal at that point. I wouldn't suggest going much more than 2 hours unless you're really comfortable. Mostly you're probably going to lose a couple people because you're not getting that level of engagement. But again, if I've been on some long ones that seem to work. So there was a question that came up that says, are regional classes staying with their original dates? Let's circle back to that here at the end of this presentation and we can address that. My belief would be yes, but let's get some input from Charles on that on what to do. So we'll circle back around to your question. All right, so I've created the length of my class. Now I have an option to put a description. And since we know my June class is going to be on COVID-19, I don't know, job site safety practices, maybe we just label it job site safety, COVID-19 job site safety. Now, the thing about this is it's going to create a little description box in this email that you're going to get, but you are limited to the amount of characters that you can send out through the Remind app. So we'll circle back around to that conversation here in a second. So this doesn't need to be long and lengthy because it's not going to really do you a whole lot of good anyways, since your apprentices won't see the whole description. In this box right here, you do have an option to invite your apprentices by email. You can do that. It's a little extra work for you. You don't have to do it that way though, because our intent was for you to set up the Remind app and invite all your apprentices through Remind. So what I'm going to do is show you how you would end up doing that. In order to do that, you have to make sure that you click this box right here where it says copy host. And what it does is you'll see is it enters your email address as the host. So when you create this invitation, you're going to get an email with the details that you entered in these boxes sent to your email address. And then you can use that information to copy it and create an announcement in the Remind app. So you're going to come down here that says, I'm not a robot. And then you're going to say invite. So right now I filled out the title, filled out the date, time, duration, brief description, copy host. So it sends me an email and I'm going to hit invite. So at the top now you're going to see it says success, invite sent. So if I go over here to my email address now, or my email account, sorry, you're going to see right here, I've already gotten the invitation. It says June Instructional Class 3. And if I come over here to the email body, I can see that my date and time is June 13th, all the information that I entered. I have a dial-in number and an access code. Your dial-in number and access code will be unique to your meeting space. But my suggestion when sending out your meeting invitation is to use only this link down here. And the reason is if you have somebody call in and use this phone number and this PIN to access your class, and I'm going to show you an example of this here shortly, you're not going to know who that person is. So when it comes time to fill out your attendance rosters, you're going to have a hard time identifying who that person is to give them credit. So I would only send out this meeting link so that they can join from their mobile device, tablet, or computer, and then enter their name into the field to ask them when they enter the meeting space. So that way you can track their attendance. And we'll go over that a little bit more detail here shortly. So the other thing to cover here is say you wanted to be an overachiever and you go back to the screen where you created your first invitation. You say, okay, now I got my June class done, so now I'm going to go ahead and do my July's class, and you go through the same process and you click your July's class and enter all the information, click an invite here. The thing that I want to point out to you through freeconferencecall.com is that this online meeting link does not change. It remains the same. So my advice would be you don't need to really get out ahead of the game too much and schedule all of your classes in advance. I would just do them the same month you're going to host your meeting because the link stays the same. So essentially, somebody could join your meeting, your class in July with the same link that you sent them in June because it doesn't create a unique URL for that meeting. So it's not the end of the world, and I'll show you the interface here in a little bit. But just in order to avoid creating some confusion, just do one meeting at a time per that month that you're holding your class. So you got this email now. You're on your phone. You check your email, and what you're going to do is you're going to highlight your link. You're going to copy that link. You're going to go over to your Remind app. You're going to create an announcement and you're going to say something like, reminder, the next class is June 13th from 8 a.m. or whatever your time is, and will last approximately an hour and a half. The topic is going to be COVID-19 job site safety. Here's the link to join from your computer. Now, you may have to sum up some of that because you have 140 characters to fit that in with. A good point that somebody else made in the previous session is that you can, in fact, attach a PDF sheet to your Remind app, which would get you around having to stick to the 140 characters. But it would probably take a little bit of experience to do that. And you can put this hyperlink in the PDF so that when they open the PDF and clicked on this link, it would take them to where they need to go. If that's something you want to do and you can't figure it out, reach out to me. I'm sure I can help you. But I really think that we could just send this out as an announcement with less than 140 characters, and it wouldn't be a big deal. When your apprentices get the announcement, so they're going to have an opportunity to open it up in their text message and either join the meeting by clicking on the link from their text message on the day of your class, or they can just follow this same link, type it into an address bar in an internet browser from their computer and join the link that way. So I would encourage you to have them join from a computer or a tablet, something with a larger screen that'll help them be able to see the material you're going to cover. All right, so going back to our online meeting wall, you've created your account, you've got your online meeting wall, you've created your first class. Now, how do I host a class? Well, in order to host a class, since that link is the same link for no matter how many classes you create, you just come to your home page in freeconferencecall.com and click on this host online meeting green tab right here on the day of your class. So my suggestion would be to probably start your class a little bit early so you can get set up and get your screen sharing set up, which is something we're going to cover here in a minute. But all you have to do is hit this host online meeting and then open up, it'll open up this web browser right here that says, okay, how do you want to host a meeting? Do you as the host want to dial it in, or do you want to join with your computer audio? Well, you're going to be working from your computer already because you're going to share your screen. So you're going to say join with computer audio. Now, a little disclaimer here, when I click on this join with computer audio tab, you're going to get some background noise. And that's just their hold music until other attendees log in. So I'm going to do this, and then it's going to take me a second. I got to phone in from my office phone here so we can get the background music to stop playing. But it's a good example of what's going to happen with you. When you start your meeting, you're going to have that noise playing while you're setting up your to share your screen with your PowerPoint or whatever it is that you're going to go over. And it'll continue to play until the first person joins the meeting. On the other side of that, if apprentices join this meeting before you officially start it by going to this section right here, they're just going to be on hold hearing that music until you officially start the meeting. So I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to join with computer audio.
Thank you for choosing freeconferencecall.com. You're helping.
And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to log in.
You are the only participant in the conference.
I'm going to log in because I'm the only participant. I'm getting my background music right now. So give me just 1 second here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and mute this audio here. But as you can see now, I joined from my phone, so the music automatically stopped on its own. And then if I go to this little bar at the bottom, attendees, this is going to be who I can see is in this class. The problem is, like I was stating earlier, if you have apprentices phone in with that phone number and PIN number that you get for creating your account, you're not going to be able to see who they are. You're just going to see the phone number that they're calling in from. So we really want to just send out the link to the meeting so they can join from their phone, tablet, or computer and have to enter their name in. You'll be able to see everyone that is entered into your class in this sidebar, but when you're done with the meeting, you're going to get an email of that summary, and that's really going to be your class roster. And I'll show you what that looks like once we're done going through the tutorial here, and how to use that to track attendance for your class through the ISAQR app. But a couple of things to note while you're here is that down here, one of the very first things you're going to do is you're going to share your screen. When you start your meeting and you're waiting for people to join or you're getting prepped up, you want to share your screen. Now for me, if I click on this box, you're going to see that I have a couple of monitors listed here. I'm using a couple of different monitors in my office right now. So if you're hosting a class only from your laptop, then you may only see just one screen here. You won't see all these other screens that I've got going on. And on your one screen, you'll see everything that you currently have open on your desktop. So unfortunately, I won't be able to actually share my screen through freeconferencecall.com to show you what that looks like, because I'm using my computer software to share my screen already using GoToMeetings. This won't be an issue for you because you're not going to be using two video conferencing softwares at the same time like what I'm doing. I'm asking a little bit too much of my computer to do it this way. But we had to do it this way because if I were to invite you to this meeting that we're doing right now, only on online meeting, freeconferencecall.com, then you wouldn't be able to see this whole interface that I have on the screen right now with the toolbar and all that stuff. Even if I was sharing my screen, this box doesn't show up at all. So that's why we had to do it the way that we're doing it. So a little unconventional, but I think it still kind of gets the point across. So I'm going to come back to the share the screen part. I want to cover all these other tools first, and then we'll circle back around. I'll show you some additional things that you can do here. So starting at the left, you have the mute button. I have this muted right now because I'm on the phone with you guys through GoToMeetings. But obviously, when you're conducting your class, you would unmute this. You could have it muted while you're doing setup or while people are joining, but you need to make sure you unmute yourself so that people can hear you. This one right here for video, that's to turn your web camera on or off. And we'll leave that kind of up to you guys. It's not the expectation to have your webcam on so the apprentices can see you. It's not our expectation for them to have their webcam on so you can see them. In all honesty, with GoToMeetings, we can host 150 people in this chat room, but out of those 150, only 25 of them can be actively using their webcam at one time. With GoToMeetings, it's a little bit different, or with freeconferencecall.com, it's a little bit different than GoToMeetings. You can actually host 1,000 people in one conference on freeconferencecall.com. But the more people that you have joining with video, the more of a chance you're going to run into with people having issues or maybe even slowing down your broadband connection because of all the video that your conference is trying to process at the same time. So really, the only thing we really need them to do is we need them to be able to see your screen and be able to hear you as you're progressing through your presentation, and then definitely be able to chat with you by typing into the chat box. So again, video optional. You can turn that on if you like, or leave it off. This next one over here, invite. You won't need to use this because you've already invited all your apprentices through the link you sent out through Remind. This is used for, say I want to start a meeting here real quick, and it's a last minute thing, and I need to invite Charles over to my meeting. I would just click on invite, and then I can invite Charles or someone by email just to get a meeting going here right now. But you've already set your meeting up in advance. You've already sent your link out to your apprentices, so you don't have to worry about that. We've already talked about share. Here's record. Record is something that you can use if you feel comfortable. We're recording this session right here so that I can convert it to a YouTube video and send it back out for you guys to look through. You can record sessions that you do also if you would like. And what it does is it automatically stores it to your 1 GB of storage on the Free Conference Call cloud server. And you would end up having to download that to your computer to free up space if you were recording a lot of sessions. It's not really necessary for you to do that because you guys are going to be conducting one-off type classes. This would be more used for if you're going to do a lot of the same thing. You can, record the session and then use that as your class for the next session. Attendees. So under the attendees box, it opens up the sidebar here and I can see who all is in my meeting. Now, the bad thing about this portion right here is you can't rely on this solely to see who's in your meeting after the meeting is concluded, because once you end this meeting, you don't have a record of this, but you get that email back for your roster of who attended. So we're going to cover that here again in just a second. This is probably, this and one other function up here are probably the two most important parts. When you share your screen, and if you're doing it from a laptop and just using one screen, then maybe you pick that you want to share the PowerPoint. And I'm going to go over, to this one. I would pick maybe I only want them to see the PowerPoint, so I would start sharing. Again, you're not going to see it shared here right now because I'm already using GoToMeetings to share my screen with you to show you this platform, so I can't share my screen twice. But for you, by doing what I just did right there, now your PowerPoint's going to pop up in this box, and your toolbars are going to be minimized, and they're going to go up here to the top right-hand corner. And through a little bit of trial and error with Greg and I, we found how you can expand the toolbar so that you can open up the chat box. The chat box is going to be the most important part that you really need to have available to you, especially if you're using just one screen. Getting that chat box open back up and have it overlay over the top of your PowerPoint is going to be probably one of the most important things. And like I said, it will take some practice if you're using one screen. It is a little bit easier if you have another screen at your disposal, and we'll circle back around to that here in a minute. So I have the chat box open up. I'm sharing my full screen up here under mode. So one of the things that you're going to want to do when you get ready to start your class is you're going to want to come to mode, and you're going to want to click on mode and come down here to where it says lecture. And when I click lecture, what that does is that force mutes every single person that's in your class except for you, and they do not have the ability to unmute themselves. So the only way that they'll be able to interact with you is by typing something in the chat box. They'll have no way of being able to get your attention because you're not going to see them. You're not going to see their web camera most likely, especially if you're using one screen and you have your PowerPoint up, taking up the whole screen, and you are monitoring the chat box. You're not going to be able to see them waving their hands trying to get your attention. So one of the things that you want to definitely get out there is when you're starting your stuff, some housekeeping rules. Hey, when we start our class, I'm going to force mute everyone. That way it cuts down on the background noise. If you have a question, type it into the chat box. I'll be monitoring the chat box throughout this presentation and answering any questions you have as you go through it. Up here you have lock. If you clicked on this meeting, if you clicked on this lock, it'll lock the meeting, meaning, as I said before, you only have one link created for all your meetings. Doesn't matter if it's on a different date or not. So really, this is kind of made for if you're hosting several meetings in one day, and maybe your first meeting kind of overlaps with what your second meeting is going to be, and you don't want people from your second meeting joining your first meeting yet. So if you click on this lock,
conference has been locked.
If you click on that lock button, you get a notification saying it's been locked. And what that does is anybody who clicks on the link to join your meeting, they won't be able to. The downside to locking your meeting is, let's say hypothetically you have people in this class, and we've even had some issues here with people. Robert Carr said, "Hey, I lost audio for a bit." He had, might have to leave and come back in. If you lock your meeting and he leaves or has a connectivity issue, he won't be able to get back into the class. Now, remember, you're going to be able to see through the roster that you're going to get via email when you conclude your meeting. You're going to be able to see how long they were on for, when they got on, when they got off. So if somebody had an issue and they got off and they got back on again, you'll be able to track it that way, and then decide whether or not they're going to get class credit or not. So a question just came up. Can you boot people from the meeting in case a participant is typing inappropriate things into the chat? Yeah. So what you do is you go to this right-hand side here. You'll have to open up the attendees side tab. If you're using one screen and your PowerPoint's taking up the whole screen, uh, and you have the chat open, you'll only see your PowerPoint and the chat box. So if things are getting typed in there that are inappropriate, if that's an issue for you, then you'll have to click on the toolbar at the top to open up the attendee section, and then scroll down till you find that person's name, and then you click on these three dots on the right hand side, and then you can hit drop. It'll boot them out of your meeting. And then I guess at that point, if you feel you need to, you can lock your meeting so that they can't get back in and be disruptive again. Great question. Some cool features that you have access to, as you see, as soon as I start sharing my screen, I get this extra icon on here called drawing. And if I click on that, I have an option to do pen, eraser, arrow. I can highlight something in a color. And I kind of want to show you guys what that looks like. The tool is comparable to what we're using in GoToMeetings. So if I was in GoToMeeting sharing my screen, I have the same toolbar at the top of my screen. Now, you guys can't see it on your end, but I have an icon that says Drawing Tools. It's right at the top. And you guys will have the same thing when you have your free conference call meeting interface opened up. But I can click on that drawing tool, and I can come down to highlighter or whatever, pen, arrow, whatever those other drawing tools were. And as I'm going through, if I want to point out something, I can draw attention and say groups, hey, this 10 people is important. And you guys will be able to see me drawing on my screen, or I can say, contractors need to do their part in making sure that all visitors aren't showing symptoms of COVID-19, whatever it is. You have some options to kind of make it a little bit more interactive. Again, you guys need to be aware that this definitely takes some practice. So you're not going to get off of this little tutorial here and be a pro. You really need to try this out a couple of times, and you may even stumble a little bit as you try to go through and figure out these things. But practice makes perfect. So I definitely encourage you to practice a couple of times before you try to do it for yourself for the first time. So going back to my meeting interface, now I've conducted my class, I'm done, I've answered all the questions, I'm ready to end the meeting. So I come down here to where it says leave, and I have an option to just leave myself or end. And since you're the host, you're going to end. You're going to end the meeting, which is essentially going to kick everyone off of the line, and the meeting's then been concluded. And I can close out of this. Now, you'll end up getting an email. It doesn't take very long. Just got it right now. So you'll get an email back to your email address that you used to sign up with. And this is going to be a summary of your meeting. So it's going to say how long your meeting lasted for, how many attendees you had. I had 2 attendees. Here they are. And I can see how long each person was on here for. I can see their start time. I can see their end time. If for some reason they got kicked off and came back in, I'd see them listed twice. I'd see them listed from here to here, and then another start time, maybe down a little bit. Now, this is important because this is how you're going to go through and log people in for class credit. So maybe as part of your disclaimer when you're starting your class, you need to say, if you had somebody join, like in our case, in this class right here, we had a couple of people join that just said user or said admin, and I don't know who that is. And most likely, if I can't see your camera, I'm not going to be able to identify you if we're not using the webcam. So you need to let your attendees know that if they signed in as admin or they didn't want to say who they were, that the only way you can identify who they are is for them to enter the information in when they log into your meeting. So they may need to leave the meeting and then come back, rejoin the meeting, and enter their name. If they want credit for the class, that's what they're going to end up having to do. So the JATC office is going to send out an email to each of you guys with the QR codes for all of your apprentices that are assigned to you. And what you're going to have to do after your meeting is done is you're going to have to go through and you're going to have to compare your QR list with the names of your attendees here. It'll be a PDF document. It'll have their QR code on it. So as you go through and you check people off of this list, you can scan them in, and you can scan them right from your computer using the ISA QR app. But that's going to be how you log attendance for your apprentices. So with that being said, I think I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can cover a couple of other items here. And again, if you have any questions or anything, please feel free to type them in the chat box as we go through this, make sure everyone has all their questions answered. So one of the questions that we got from a previous session is, hey, if we're only doing an hour and a half or 2 hour webinar, do apprentices get full credit for attending the webinar? What does that look like? Here's the message. The message is what we've done before is we told everyone for every class that was canceled, they needed to do one oils class to make up for that. Okay. Now that we're going to roll out this interactive training, that's going to be a requirement. It's just like going back to class now. If classes were in session, they would have a requirement to attend your class. So now their requirement is to attend the class on your class date for June, July, and August, at least for right now. And we'll look at this going forward. We have to extend this past that. But they'll have a requirement, just as if class was in session in person, they need to attend your webinar class, and they have to do an oils class. They have to do both. Now, the one thing that I'll say is that we've made the decisions because all of your classes have already been set up through the ISAQR app. When you teach your June class, for an example, it's not going to say COVID-19 hour and a half. It's going to have whatever the original topic was, and it's going to have 5 hours or 8 hours if it's a regional class associated with it. But they're going to have to do both the webinar and an oils class, and we'll be vetting that out from behind the scenes, behind the curtains, to make sure that they've done both so that they can achieve their required training hours. So a couple of things. If you decide you wanted to do yours longer, that's fine too. That's your discretion. The expectation certainly is not to go much over 2 hours. Freeconferencecall.com does not limit the time of your meetings. You can certainly go through and conduct however long of a class you want to conduct. That's your discretion. But I would say that probably 2 hours is going to be probably pretty good for your attention span. So a question came up and said, can apprentices that aren't assigned to an instructor participate in this class? I would say that, we can host up to 1,000 people in any one of these training sessions. And if they have the link, they can join, but it won't be a requirement for the people out of the 100-mile radius to join these webinars. They just have their oils requirement, same as before when we were hosting in-person classes. They didn't have a requirement to come to the in-person class. They only needed to complete their oils classes. So can they join? Sure. We don't want to exclude anyone. And, depending on the success or, the faults of this, we'll find out as we go through. Maybe this is something we'll look at doing more for those people later on, maybe next year or year after. So we've got some preliminary discussions going on with that. Another question came up and says, if I have to rejoin the class for some reason, does it automatically rejoin me as a host? So yeah, you are the host. Unfortunately, if you get kicked off, it's going to kick everyone off. So because you're the host, and you're the only one hosting the meeting. So whatever format you guys are using right now, I'm looking at all of you guys. I can see everyone clearly. Haven't had an issue with audio. If you can hear me clearly, then basically what that's telling me is that whatever you're using right now is going to be sufficient enough for you to be able to conduct your own class. So if there's a connectivity issue, maybe that's a disclaimer you want to put out there in the beginning. Hey, if for some reason this class you get kicked off, wait a few minutes, try to rejoin, so that it gives you an opportunity to start the class back up again. Great question, great comment, thank you. Another question came in, says a lot of my apprentices have done several oils classes already. This is a frequent question that's come up in every session. What happens? What do we do with those overachievers? They went out above and beyond and they've done some oils classes ahead of the game. Hey, that's great. That means that they don't need to do the oils classes for the next 3 webinars that they still need to attend, but they still need to attend your webinars then at that point. Okay. So we covered what your roster stuff looks like. We covered how to share your screen and go through your meetings. Most of us right now are working from home. So, if you don't have access to a second monitor, if you only have a laptop, somebody had brought up in a previous session, hey, can I use my TV as a second monitor? Absolutely. Most TVs these days have an HDMI input. Most of your computers should have an HDMI output. Hook a cord up. That could be your second monitor. If you're in a space where you can do that and it's a quiet enough environment, it will work to your benefit when you're hosting these classes, because it is a little bit challenging when working from one screen, but it is doable. It's definitely doable. You just have to practice it with it for a little bit. The one thing that I want to point out is if I were to host a PowerPoint, you really need to make the PowerPoint full screen, because if you're to host your PowerPoint and it looked something like this, that's not going to be very beneficial for the people attending the class. They're not really going to see the PowerPoint to this size that they need to see it from. Plus, they're going to see all the stuff they don't need to see. They don't need to see the slides on the side. They don't need to see your speaker notes if there's any listed down here. So you really want to make that PowerPoint presentation full screen. But like I said, once you do that, you are going to lose your toolbars for your conference call.com if you're using only one screen. So you'll have to find that toolbar at the top and then come back to circle around and open the chat box and have that overlaid over the top of the PowerPoint presentation. So it's doable. We've tried it. We've done a couple of trial runs with it. It takes some getting used to. But so does riding a bike, and you guys all figured that out, I'm assuming. So. All right. Some other questions that we have here is, can you send a message out to all the apprentices in their school email about what the requirement's going to be when we start these interactive training classes back up and make that a requirement? Yes, we can, and we will. We'll have Josh send out a notification through their WCC email. But the problem is most of the apprentices aren't monitoring that email, so they may not see the notification anyways. So that's why we're going to rely on you guys who've already set up the Remind app for your class areas to get that notification out to all of your apprentices that, hey, this is the requirement now. You're going to need to attend this webinar, and you're going to need to do an oils class for at least June, July, and August in order to get credit and stay current in the training program. With that being said, Charles, maybe I can circle back around to a question that we had earlier that said, are the regional classes staying with their original dates?
I had a request not to speak. I'm overriding that request. It's not approved. Yes, the regional classes are staying with their dates. However, I know some of the regional classes are quite small. If you've got 3 sites, usually that second or third site that we lumped into you guys had a small population. So we can certainly look at if it makes the most sense combining your dates or combining your classes so that you can invite City A and City B and do a single session if it's not too large to manage on a platform like this for you guys, or if you want to maintain them, all 3 of them separately, I'm good. But we will have to use the dates that are already established, because that's when you have the dates in the ISA app to be able to log in and scan attendance. And that's when our apprentices are expecting to have class. So we don't want to send out additional mailings based on changing dates.
Great, thank you.
I also want to comment on one other thing real quick. Jeff mentioned that, if you have, access to a TV that has a HDMI input and your computer does that, that works as a second screen, or if you have another monitor in the house that you can, tie into as a second screen, great. This is not authorization to go buy a new TV.
I had my eye on a really cool 75-inch secondary monitor that I could use. All right. Question came in, says, what about the apprentices that didn't respond to the Remind app? Great question. You know, I think in the list that went out to most of you guys, there was also an email address listed with apprentices. My suggestion would be maybe if the number you sent them on the Remind app, you didn't get a response from them, there could be a slight chance that maybe that was a home line, a landline. I don't know who has those anymore these days, but maybe that is the case. So they didn't receive the text message for an invite. So I would suggest maybe reaching out to, to them through their email address and see if, you can get a hold of them that way and get a current cell phone number from them. Okay. Another question that's come up, Charles, is, obviously these guys are going to be conducting class. The webinars are 2 hours. There's going to be some extra work involved with scanning the people in through ISAQR, which, by the way, ISAQR came up with an update this morning again. So if you have not updated recently, or if you haven't updated since this morning, your app's going to need an update. So don't forget to update. But the question being, obviously they'll be able to write down time. What is the time that they are authorized to write down for conducting these webinar trainings?
Yeah, so it's no issue with the money. You guys took the time to set up the Remind app, log all your apprentices in. So certainly turn in an expense sheet for 8 hours for working on the Remind app, logging into this and going through, today's session, and subsequently then getting set up that free conference call app, submit an expense sheet for 8 hours. And then the same on the days that you teach. We know you're not teaching 8 hours, but there's a lot of behind the scenes actions that you need to do to be able to scan in your apprentices after class. You're going to go through a bunch of prep time. So it's, just as if you were teaching, 8 hours is what's expected on your timesheets.
Another question came up, is a free conference call free, or do we have to, do something to pay with our green card? Free conference call is in fact free, so there's no costs associated. You should not need to use your green card to expense anything like that. A side note, when you're also doing these video conferencing things, especially from home, if you have an environment that might be a little bit noisy in the background, it does help to have a headset. And a headset not being one of those big fancy gaming ones, but even just, the earbuds with the cord that came with your iPhone or Android phone or whatever, if you plug that in, those work well in our experience. So if you have a lot of background noise, that'll help cut down some of the background noise. Another question is, you do definitely have to monitor the chat box kind of closely. You're not going to get a notification or a ding or anything that says, hey, you have a notification. So if you're going through your presentation, just kind of be sure to keep an eye on that chat box and see what's coming on. I can see some of you guys right now are writing chats to me right now, and I'm not getting any kind of notification even through GoToMeeting. So it works the same on freeconferencecall.com. A question came in, says, you may be able to use your projector, or it's more of a statement, you may be able to use your projector as a primary monitor and let them see the PowerPoint by sharing it on your laptop, sort of a flip-flop from normal. You could certainly, let me see here. That might be something that we need to try out. I'm not 100% sure if that would work, but it seems like it would, because you have an input, HDMI input and output on your computer, and you can actually use it as a secondary screen when you're conducting a class if you're not mirroring it. So I believe that would be an acceptable solution also. Might be a little bit weird for you because, obviously they're not going to see the projector. When you share your screen, they're just going to see the projector screen on their computer, but not an actual projection. So, that might be a little bit of a learning curve for you, but great point. That's a great statement. I appreciate the feedback on that. Another comment came in about what event code do we use for these webinars on our timesheets. You're conducting a class, so you just use that same cost code. It's the class cost code for whenever you're doing your webinars. Again, a question came in and says, is it possible to get these instructions that we went over today? We're recording this session right now. So when this session's over, I'll convert it to an MP4 and I'll upload it to YouTube. And then I'll send a link out to all the team leaders with this video. And also Greg kind of created a screenshot of what that toolbar will look like when you make your presentation full screen to help you find the toolbar if you're using only one screen in freeconferencecall.com. So I'll send that out as well. Another question that came up is, so for June, we're changing the topic for June. You're going to teach this COVID-19 safety course, job site safety course. We want to get that information out there. What about July and August? For July and August, teach the classes that were already slated, the class topics that were already slated to be taught in July and August as sent out by Greg on Blackboard. So check your Blackboard, download the presentations. Those are the class topics we'll want taught in July and August to kind of get back on track. As of right now, this COVID-19 course is not on Blackboard for you guys to download and take a look at. It's in its final process. It's not 100% done. I would expect by the end of next week that it will be ready for you guys to download. We'll follow back up, and then Greg will send a notification out when it's been uploaded to Blackboard, and you guys can download it and take a look at it. Does anyone else have any questions or concerns or need any help with anything? Now it's kind of like an open forum portion where you can, either write something in the chat or unmute yourself and ask some questions. I know it's been a little bit of time since we've all been able to be together in a group here. Had a question that came in, and this is a great segue, Dan. It's almost like we're on the same wavelength here. Good job, bud. You're picking up what I'm putting down. He goes, where are we at with the certs classes? And I assume what you're meaning is the CEU classes for California, for an example. So you should have received an email that I just recently sent out yesterday to everyone for California. And we have all the classes approved for CEUs for California, all the class topics for 2019 or for 2020, in addition to several topics that were chosen for 2019, as well as the SETS class for 2020, and also 5 online courses. The 5 online courses, we're in the process of delivering them via their platform, and that should be ready to roll out here maybe in the next couple of months. We're working on an automatic enrollment procedure that they'll go to the 669 website to be able to sign up for and enroll themselves in the course. And then they'll be able to take the course. They're worth 5 hours each, so they'll have to do a couple of courses to get their 1 year's worth of CEUs. But we're in the final stages of getting those to a platform that they're ready to deliver. So you should have plenty of stuff to choose from. It is our intent to hopefully get back to some sort of normal here in the fall, and we'll have a better idea of what that looks like as we get closer. We don't know if we're going to have to adhere to social distancing guidelines, if states will have requirements for that when we actually do get back into class. That's something we're just going to have to cross when we get there. But our hopes are that we'll be able to get back to some sort of normal of teaching in the class here in the fall. So the SETS class that we created for this year, the continuing education and training for sprinkler fitters class, the previously known as formal class that we created for this year that you guys went to training in February, we'll be teaching that in the fall. Whether it's in place of one of your normally scheduled classes or it's an addition, just kind of depends how things work out at that point. We'll definitely notify everyone as we get closer to that resolution there. But the intent would be to teach that, so you still be able to teach that as your continuing education for this year, like say in California. For Colorado and Wisconsin, we received temporary approval to have those fitters do online classes to get their CEUs. We had really good enrollment from Colorado. We had almost 100 people enroll from the Colorado area. The enrollment ended April 24th. and it goes through June 30th. You guys have until June 30th to teach, or for them to get their CEUs. So if they get online, complete their course, they'll get emailed a continuing education certificate of completion that they'll use to prove their CEUs to Colorado. So we'll be running manual grade reports for that class in June and throughout the month of June, and start emailing those out. So to date, we've got about 10 people who've already got in and completed the course for Colorado. So, I've kind of already let everyone know there were some instructional webinars that we hosted the last 2 weeks, and kind of let them know that, hey, be patient. These certificates, it's a manual process for us right now. They will be coming. They're going to be emailed to you, but you're not going to get them until June. So, these guys who finished early, if they start reaching out to you saying, hey, what's up? Where's my certs or whatever, let them know, they'll get them in June. Everyone who successfully completes the course will get them. So, yeah, comment came in from Robert Carr. I think this is a good spot. It says, should I share my phone experience? Yeah, please do. Unmute yourself and let us know how it worked from your phone when I was sharing the screen and stuff.
All right. Good morning and afternoon, everyone. This is Robert Carr. So it wasn't too bad. Every time I got a text, or there were people that tried to call or FaceTime me, it put a glitch in it to where I couldn't hear a thing that you were saying. So that was a little disruptive. And then someone tried to FaceTime me during this, and it completely kicked me off. So you'll notice that I left and then had to rejoin. So the phone way is a little bit different, and it seems like it's a little more distracting. Another big thing is I can only see about 6 people, including myself, on the screen right now. I don't know what you guys can see, if you can see everybody or what, but I can only see a chosen few, and I don't know how it chose those people. It's just random. Let's see. I don't know. I had to turn my phone sideways to get your screen to pull up so I can actually see. So since the screen is so small on this phone, it was hard for me to see your screen when you were kind of going through and clicking on all the icons and showing. So if you guys see me, I probably had my face like right in the phone. I didn't know how to turn on my video for a while, so that took a while before you guys were able to see me. And then the questions that everyone was writing in the chat as they were coming through, it seemed like some were coming to all and some were just going to you, Jeff, which I assume that's what they were doing. But when those questions come across the screen, they were very brief. I mean, just maybe 2 seconds tops. So as I tried to read the question, boop, it was already gone. And then these headphones that I'm using with my phone work really well, but I will also say that the microphone is very sensitive. When I'm talking to people on this, they can hear my neighbors in the next trailer over talking as well. So I don't know if this would be a good idea if you have a lot of background noise, because this microphone in particular happens to be very sensitive to the surrounding ambient noise. And that's really all I have.
Perfect. Thank you, Robert, for your feedback on that. What I will say to address a couple of things that you brought up was that, I was going through clicking on a lot of icons. Yeah, and that was hard for you to see. But remember, the apprentices are only going to be really interested in seeing the PowerPoint stuff. So they probably don't need to have it at such a high level of detail. And again, we want to definitely motivate these guys to try to look at it from a computer or a tablet for sure. The phone is just a last resort option. So if somebody says, well, I don't have those things, I can't attend these meetings, well, they can. And we just proved that that's the case. They can, in fact, still participate. But, it would be easier for them if they do it from a computer or something like that. A couple questions that came up. So to circle back to the Colorado thing. Oh, I'm sorry, Robert. I seen you unmuted. Do you have something to add?
No, I was just going to say that it seems like it would be better from a computer standpoint. The phone it's definitely doable, like you said. However, it does seem a little more distracting, and there's more cause for concern.
Understood. Yeah. To circle back, a question came in there about, is there any other options for journeymen who did not register for the Colorado class? Um, we sent out notices at the end of March for the class with giving them a month to register. I know it was also posted to your guys' Facebook page. The went out to the contractors, the business agents got it. The notice has been out there. Um, the date came and gone, and typical sprinkler fitter fashion, I received several late enrollments after the 24th came and gone. So we enrolled more people the following week on May 1st. I did some late enrollments. So a week after that, I'm still getting late enrollments. I'm still getting late enrollments right now for something that passed nearly 3 weeks ago. What we've decided to do, although we're not advertising it, is we're holding a one more late enrollment. So anyone who sends me their information by May 29th will be able to still be enrolled in the class. So if you know some people who need this, go ahead and have them shoot me an email. I need their name, address, their license number, their UAID number, and I will get them enrolled. The caveat to that is they will not have access to the class until the first week of June because we're not running the enrollment until the end of May. We do not have control over enrolling people into Blackboard. We have to go through the UA for that. So that's the reason for that. So we're not trying to send them a request every couple of days for the onesies and twosies that keep on coming in. After May 29th, if they have not sent a request in, they will have to find alternative means to get their CEUs. I mean, at what point do we have to draw the line in the sand at some point? So another question came up, says, do you have a link for a tutorial on how to use multiple screens and not screen share? So you do have to screen share in order to, I think if I understand your question the right way, how do you show your screen? Even if you have multiple screens, you still go through screen share to do it. You just pick which monitor you want the attendees to see. So it still goes through the screen share. If you have multiple screens, you have multiple options to choose from. If you're using only your laptop, you only have one option to choose from. So you still both ways go through the screen share option in the user interface. So does anyone have any other questions or concerns? Anything that they want to address while you got the boss here on the phone, and anything I can help with? Okay, seeing none. Charles, did you have anything in closing that you wanted to add?
All right, I would just like to reiterate, thanks for taking the time and getting on board and accepting the challenges of this new environment that we're in. I just, wish that everybody stays healthy, you and your families and everybody close to you. Hopefully everybody is staying healthy and don't have any issues with COVID going forward. That's all I have.
Great. Well, again, just to reiterate, beat this thing to death. Please, please, please sign up for this free account and practice with it before you try to use it for the first time. It's going to take a little bit of learning, but we had something that was stated in the last meeting, and I thought it was a great message to kind of end with. And it's that, we are 669 and the UA, and we set the standard on training. And I think that that's a very valuable statement. Unfortunately, with everything that's going on around us right now, it's forced us all out of our comfort zones. I will say that the positive thing to come of it is it's forced us all to have to use technology to some extent. We're seeing that even on the job sites. Construction in general has been very slow to adopt technology. We just like things the way they are. We don't want to make no changes. If it's not broke, don't fix it. But there is a value in embracing technology, and kind of forced us in a relatively small time frame to have to do that. So I think all of you guys are up for the challenge, and I think you're definitely more than capable. If you have any issues, reach out to your team leaders, see if they can help you get them resolved. If that, if you just need additional help after that, then I'm available too. I'll help out and see if we can get anything that you're that you need to get fixed to make sure that you guys have the tools you need to deliver this training. A couple last minute comments that came in right under the wire here. It says scanning the ISA QR codes. That might have been Robert during the time where you got kicked off with no audio, but what that was is you're going to receive an email when you end a meeting with all your attendees. So you're going to have to go through your attendee list as part of your after class assignment and compare that to the list that you're going to get from the JATC office with all of your apprentices' QR codes, and you'll have to scan in all of your apprentices that attended your webinar. So that's how we're going to give them credit. And then one last comment that came in says, they believe that there might be a need for a technology class to update the instructors. I would say that, you guys have all been successful already with going onto this platform. And I think that, let's see who can do this and who's up to the challenge. And if you need some help, then definitely reach out and we'll get you there. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Hope everyone has a great weekend. Stay safe and we'll talk to you soon.